to the She Leads podcast. I'm your host, Adrienne Garland, CEO and founder of She Leads Media, a global media company dedicated to the advancement of women leaders and entrepreneurs worldwide. I'm also an adjunct professor at NYU and Rice University, where I teach on the topic of entrepreneurship. I'm a mom to 2 wonderful young men and married to my best friend from college. Join me each week as I dive into raw conversations with remarkable, uncompromising, and inspirational women entrepreneurs and leaders. My hope is that these conversations and their advice will encourage you to put yourself out there and gain the visibility that you and all women deserve. We're all about stripping away the sugar-coated conversations and moving boldly in the direction of our magnificent dreams. For far too long, women have been conditioned to soften their words, modify their actions, and show up in the world to conform to outdated at best and harmful at worst cultural norms and ideals. Why? To keep those who are outside of the power structures from gaining power, prestige, wealth, and influence. This has prevented women from being recognized and respected as the powerful leaders that we truly are. The She Leads podcast is here to shine the light on all the incredible women, to encourage us to show up, speak up, and showcase the amazing work we do. Speak with confidence about the innovative and transformational thoughts that we have, and celebrate the positive impact that we are making in this world, both personally and professionally. So let's do this. Let's lead. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the She Leads podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by the She Leads Live 2024 conference. It's our 10th anniversary, and we are bringing together women entrepreneurs with incredible experts over 2 days in New York City. So if you haven't gotten your ticket, we're just about a month out, so go ahead and snap up your ticket today. I cannot wait to see you there. I'm also very excited because my next guest is Mel McSherry. She's an international business and life guide that helps inspired but overwhelmed entrepreneurs, and I think we can all relate to this, honor their lives and become the architects of their own success. Mel uses their spiritual gifts and their 14 years of business building experience to slash entrepreneur stress and bring their success to life. By merging human design with traditional business development tools, Mel coaches others on how to connect with what they want and implement their strengths and strategies to be profitable every day, mentally, emotionally, and financially. So welcome to the She Leads podcast, Mel.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I am so excited to talk to you for a multitude of reasons. I'd like to actually start with just your story because you have a great story of entrepreneurial success and then what you do now to help other entrepreneurs be everything that they can be to take from the army. And by leveraging human design to get there is something that I am so fascinated with. So Mel, take us back a little bit and tell us about your journey to how you got to where you are today.
Oh, man. Well, it's interesting how you say successful because let me tell you, there are definitely some peaks and valleys in that whole success.
Oh, yeah. I think we can all relate.
Yeah, everybody has them in their story. So mine has been just a very interesting progression. I actually start in the fitness industry. Back in 2010, I was a certified personal trainer and I did in-home trainings, outdoor boot camps. I got really well known actually for my bridal boot camps here in Chicago. And I really loved being able to, train who I wanted to train, when I wanted to train them, how I wanted to train them, and so on and so forth. And then when my son was born in 2011, it was getting difficult to travel to my clients' homes and be as flexible as I needed to be, mostly due to the fact that his father, who I was married to at the time, worked in Major League Baseball in the media relations department. So he was gone 2 months straight for spring training. By the way, I live in the city of Chicago, so he'd be in Arizona for 2 months. He would work every single home game, take every other away trip, and our kiddo was born in the middle of the baseball season. So by not really having any help, because I'm not from Chicago originally, This was my first, as I like to call them, hallways in my business. We always talk about the doors of opportunity, but rarely do we talk about the hallways in between. And the hallways I have found are some of the most juiciest, hard, beautiful spaces to be in. And we go through many of them, in different variations, different lengths throughout our journey. So this first hallway presented an opportunity where my mental and emotional profitability was really lacking. I was a new mom. I coined myself a married single mom. I had some undiagnosed postpartum depression sprinkled in there. And it was just like, okay, I need to take care of me, but also make ends meet. So I ended up actually taking a step to the side and taking on some side projects and some side jobs that would make that financial profitability alleviated a little bit so the mental and emotional could kind of recharge themselves. And that came in the form of online medical billing, score, as well as being a virtual administrator for 2 tech companies that were based in Dallas, Texas. And, I love to add this piece into my story and not glaze over it because there can come times inside of our journey where we need to make decisions that aren't necessarily in quote unquote alignment with what we want to do in the future, but they alleviate some sort of profitability points to where we can recope, we can reestablish what do we want and how we want to get there. And so we have those little maneuvers or shifts, if you will. So that shift lasted until about 2013. And I was feeling just a bit more grounded to kind of, move forward and how I wanted to build my business. And I still wanted to stay in the fitness industry. So that actually presented itself as a partnership with a network marketing company called Beachbody. And I really enjoyed being a coach. I had no desire whatsoever to be the business builder. For those who are not aware, like network marketing or multi-level marketing, the bigger money is made in team building. And I honestly thought, who am I to tell somebody how to build their own business? I'm going to let them do them. I'm going to do me. And I just wanted to be a health and fitness coach. That's all I wanted to be. And I was rather successful really quickly in making, my sales numbers. I was pretty consistent in it. And I got the attention of my leader at the time. And she's like, okay, you're this married single mom. You're doing this basically on your own for the most part, but you are the most consistent person on my team. Can you just do like a day in the life of Mel so we can just see like what's your secret sauce? And I really didn't think I had one. I was like, well, okay, I'm just kind of going, I'm just doing what I kind of feel good, what feels good to me. And so I made a quick training where I talked about the importance of time and energy management when it came to your prioritizations. Because it's so easy for us to be like, oh, I've got time to do this. Well, I've got time to do this, but we don't check in with ourselves to see, well, yeah, but am I capable of doing this right now? And that was one thing I always have done and continue to do is every morning I look at my schedule and say, okay, how much time do I have today for myself? And what do I want to do to fill that time to be profitable, mentally, emotionally, and financially? And I match my to-do list with my energy. And apparently that was not something that was really talked about because she put that in the new coach boot camp. All of a sudden her team exploded. People naturally wanted to be on a team with me. So all of a sudden I had this huge team. And fast forward a year later, we're in the top 1% of the company. I'm getting asked to do team calls and trainings within Beachbody. I'm also getting asked by friends in other network marketing companies to do calls and trainings for them. And fast forwarding to 2015, I found myself in the middle of my divorce. I had one foot in fitness that wasn't going anywhere because my other foot was now in this business training, coaching. I didn't even know what it was yet. And I thought, well, if there's any time to find my next hallway, it's now, find that next door of opportunity. And through Beachbody, beautifully, I had a year-long internship with John C. Maxwell, who is the creme de la creme of coaches. My dad used to, read and listen to his stuff. My dad is an amazing entrepreneur as well. And so through him, I got to learn what business coaching was. And I loved the way that he views it and presents it. We're not solution finders. We're facilitators. We're guides. And so I got my certification through him and his international leadership team. I left Beachbody in 2016, launched my business, quote unquote, coaching business in 2017. And then human design decided to present itself to me shortly thereafter, actually. But the funny thing is the first time it found me, I was like, cool. Like somebody told me my type. There's 5 types in human design, which is like the overarching descriptor of who you are. And I was like, yeah, cool. That's me. Sweet. Yep. Makes sense. And I didn't really think much of it. Moving on to 2020, unbeknownst to me at the time of what 2020 would present, 2 weeks before lockdown here in Chicago, I went to a spiritual retreat in Sedona. And it was one of the most prolific experiences I've ever had for multiple reasons. But one of them was human design presented itself to me again. And I was like, okay, this time I took my time. I went deeper into my chart. One of the people that were there was familiar with it, so they were able to kind of guide me. And I literally just sat and sobbed because before that moment, on paper, I was very successful in my business. I was traveling consistently. I was speaking internationally. I was getting paid great money. But my mental and emotional profitability was slowly but surely losing itself because I had flipped that hierarchy of needs. A lot of times in entrepreneurship, we don't make mental and emotional profitability part of the hierarchy. It is money. It is numbers. It is, you want that 10K a month or, 60K in 60 seconds. This is what you need to do. And that's what I slowly but surely started to subscribe to. And I realized that I all of a sudden didn't really have a connection to my business. I knew I loved what I did, but it was these glimmers of moments that I realized that I had gone too far away from how I was supposed to do this. I had at 1 month, 3 clients fire me in within a week of each other. And I was showing up into my space conflicted because it's like, this is the day. This is the day they find out that I don't know the solution, and it was just this constant war inside me. Why can't I do this? Why can't I be better? Why can't I push myself to do X, Y, Z? And then when I found human design,
let me stop you because I want to dive into human design and I want to rewind back because I think that you have said so many things that I think that women can relate to and also just entrepreneurs can relate to. Yeah. This idea of the hallways in between the doors is eye-opening. It feels so just familiar, right? Because we talk about the journey and it's like this road that goes on and on and on. But hallways are the things that lead from one door, one opportunity, even one misstep, to another. Yeah. And it's such a powerful visual that you can hold in your mind. And it also allows us to think that there's always another hallway that leads to another door. I love that so much.
And it's such a cool space and that's actually the space where my clients tend to find me in, is those, some people call them transitions, but it's in those spaces of they have closed a door behind them, whether that is they've left corporate and decided to be an entrepreneur, or they've been in their businesses 7+ years and they've realized they're no longer connected. So now what does this look like? Because they never actually took the time to check in on the mental and emotional profitability. It had been financially forwarded instead of checking in on themselves. Going, okay, now what do I want? Is this in alignment with how I want to build my business? Because we talk about whys all the time. Simon Sinek, I love that he had brought that to the forefront. We are very familiar with our why. What we are less confident in is our how. And that is what hallways, I believe, teach us, is they give us the time, the space, and the capacity, as overwhelming as it may be at the time, to reevaluate, to reestablish, and to revive ourselves into, okay, now what do I want? This opportunity is closed. Is this who I really am? Is this who I want to be? Is this, how do I want my ideal day to look like? What do I want my clients like? It's such a beautiful space of exploration that as you move through it, it becomes to where if you do it, I don't want to say correctly because I don't think there's any incorrect way to do it, but if you do it a little bit more holistically, WHOLE, then when you come to that door, not only do you already know what's on the other side of that door of opportunity, you have designed it yourself. You know exactly then when you step through that door, your strengths, your strategies, your stopping points, and you know the framework and the blueprint of how you want to decorate it when you're in there. And it just releases so much of that what if stress or that, well, I don't know, the unknown, like the stress of the unknown is freaking real.
It's real.
It's so
it's
real.
Absolutely real.
And it's one of the things that scares us the most.
It is. And the other point that you were making before, which I really appreciate, and I admire you because we don't often talk about this enough, is there are so many different transitions and hallways along our journey. Forget about being an entrepreneur, just along our journey. And they're not always good. They're not always fun. They're not always, what we want to be doing, but there are different seasons in our lives that sometimes we have to prioritize maybe the profitability or the financial piece of it in order to gain that stability on the emotional and mental side. And we're taught as we are, being educated or, and I don't know if anything has really changed all that much, but we are sort of taught to be these like productivity robots and focus on we're teaching you to get a job so that you can go work for someone so that you can help make them more money because the corporation knows all, right? Or the big government body knows all, instead of, hey, you've got a special gift talent. How can you think about the ills of this world and how can you bring your own brand of thought and solutions to the table, and what can that look like? And so that's, I want to dive in. I want to move into this idea, which is, I think, new for many people, of human design. So can we start with you? I know it's super complex and you can dive deep and we can
go down the rabbit hole forever, Alice.
And believe me, I want to. But can you just sort of give people an overview of what human design is? And then maybe we could do even something a little fun, because I did look something up about myself in human design the other day, and I want to see. I mean, I know that we don't know each other that well, but I'd love to see you think. I might be. So please give us an overview of what human design is and then what it can do for the individual.
Absolutely. So human design is coined as the science of differentiation. And what it does is it shows you who you are energetically as an individual. We all have a set process within ourselves of how we create what we want, how we make our best decisions, how much energy we have, what are the best ways to utilize that energy, so on and so forth. And it gives you such an insight into what I like to call your operations manual, which a lot of us feel like we don't have one. We're like, well, I don't know. Tell me what to do. Trust me, I was that person until human design found me. It's just like, I don't care. Just tell me. Like, I will copy and paste like crazy. Trust me. It also shows you where you receive your information and best ways to process it. And that is another really gorgeous insight into the why behind our how. And so how that comes together is human design is a combination of astrology, I Ching or I Ching, Kabbalah, chakras, and quantum physics. So I know there's science in there because people are like, this is sounding a little spacey. Like, no, there's actual science behind this, because it is scientifically proven that everything has its own frequency. It's, proven in a whole bunch of different studies. And we ourselves have our own frequencies that was set during the date, time, and location of where we were born. No two charts are alike. I did mention earlier that there are 5 types. So type, as I mentioned, is the overarching descriptor. A lot of people kind of coin it to like, oh, I'm a Gemini, or oh, I'm a Libra. Same aspect inside of that, where the type gives you your overarching theme. So the 5 types are generator, manifesting generator, projector, manifester, and reflector. And inside of that, again, gives you the overview, but where I think it's starting to get a little, I'm just going to say skeezy, is I love that human design is becoming more known in a lot of different avenues. But what I'm finding is that it's also becoming very what I call Instagrammable, where people
Yes.
are taking just
Yes.
one piece in this ultimate onion of personal development and living or dying by it without understanding the different pieces for themselves on how they are inside of that type. Yes, there are 5 types, but none of us are the same person inside of that type. And that's where I want and encourage people to dig deeper. You're more than just your type. You're more than just another thing that's becoming more popular is knowing your profile, which are the 2 numbers you might see a lot of. Like, oh, I'm a 5-1 or oh, I'm a 6-2. Again, gorgeous pieces of information that yes, you should know. And it is one drop in a very beautifully full bucket that you do need to take your time moving through. Even the person who brought human design forward says that it takes an average of 7 years for you to fully incorporate your entire design.
Oh my goodness.
So that sounds a very long time. I not so secretly love that he said that, because we have become, especially in the entrepreneurship world, we have become such suckers for the quick fix. Just like, oh, do these 5 things to make 60K in 60 seconds, or like, do these things and you can make this amount of money guaranteed. And so we're looking for that. We're just tell me what to do, instead of going to ourselves first and going, okay, what do I want? How do I want to feel? What do I already know to be true in the why behind my how? Because we all do naturally work inside of our design. Of course we do. It is us. We are born into it. What we find especially when we attune ourselves to it, is where we have gone too far. And so it helps us establish those boundaries, those practices that keep us in that flow every day. So everything just becomes naturally, mentally and emotionally and financially profitable.
So this is so interesting. I do agree with you that, and I see this a lot. I think there is so much that I'm super focused on women entrepreneurs. So I speak from that perspective a lot. And it's also my experience. So, we are so conditioned to be focused on others and not ourselves, so that when we start companies, we often look to things that may have been successful for other groups of people, and we try to apply it to ourselves. And I have this, just like this feeling, there's no supporting evidence that I know of, but when women start to design and build companies that look like companies that have been successful in the past, that were created and made successful by men that don't have the same responsibilities, or weren't conditioned the same. Here we are building companies that do not meet our needs, that they are not aligned to us at all. And so, you kind of play that out, and then you see the evidence that a very small percentage of women-owned businesses get past the $1 million mark. And I say, that makes sense. Not because women are, any less brilliant and driven and everything, but that they're building this structure that is not for them. And we have to be these bold women entrepreneurs and do something different. But at the same time, we have to protect everything, our financial, our mental, our emotional well-being. And we don't necessarily have enough companies that have done things in different ways that are women-centric to allow us to say, oh, that worked over there. So your comments about like, what's the quick fix? I think we're so damn confused that we just
Yeah.
want those little things because we're at our wits' end. We're
Yeah.
smart. We're driven. Why can't we figure this out? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that, and then we start losing trust in ourselves. Like,
Yes.
for those of us who were born, assigned female at birth, we were born with a natural expanded capacity. We actually can do more at once than those who are assigned male at birth. It's literally in our DNA.
Yeah.
And the fact that we, to your point, are taking these very masculine driven tools and frameworks and trying to copy and paste them completely, of course that's not going to work. That's like trying to put, a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
But we don't know the other solutions. We don't know because we don't trust ourselves because we're not taught to. We're taught to go with our gut, which, by the way, not all of us should. We're taught to, be loud. We're taught to use our voices. A lot of these one-liners that I love and appreciate and know that they are coming from such a beautiful spot, also don't work for all of us. And so even in our own community, we have dulled it down to these kind of toxic positivity one-liners that are supposed to help us feel better, but really for most of us don't apply. And that's where human design shines that flashlight because it goes, this is why. You're not crazy. You're not stupid. You're not lazy. That phrase that you just heard, you actually, one, either doesn't resonate with you at all. And you're just like, oh, thank God. Or two, this is how you can actually take that framework and make it yours. These are the bits and bobs that work for you beautifully. And this is how you can sprinkle in your own individual magic that will make this 100% yours. And that I'm like getting goosebumps head to toe just talking about because that's not what that's not what we're accomplishing a lot of the times. And for those who do, we set them in awe of like, how were you able to do that? And a lot of people are because they know themselves. They trust themselves. And I have found for me, and there are many beautiful tools outside of human design that give you that information. But what I have found with human design is the underneath the iceberg. Like we hear a lot about these gorgeous tests that there's Enneagram, there's SWOT, there's Strength Finders, and all of them are gorgeous, delicious, give you beautiful information. But I like to picture those are the top of the iceberg. Those are things that are top of mind right now, where you're at right now, mentally, emotionally, all of those things, and can tend to be a little bit malleable depending on where you are mentally, all the things.
Yeah.
Human design is the iceberg underneath. It's the why behind the how. It's the why you are choosing the way that you're choosing. And when you get to that deeper level, all of a sudden, these one-liners, these practices, these frameworks, you can see them for what they are for you and help you make that decision of like, yes, no, or yeah, but I need to like this. And that's what we're moving towards. We're moving towards a new age in 2027 where that masculine frameworks are dropping off and we're moving into a more feminine, collective, collaborative energy. And so I'm like on a mission to talk more about this as much as possible because this is where we're headed. And for those of us, especially who are assigned female at birth, can latch onto that and really start understanding our own profitability. The more that 2027 and beyond is just going, it's not going to be as much of a shock. It's going to be more of a, no, I've been prepping for this. It's like, preppers, but not weirdly.
For 3 years, right. Starting right now. Yeah. I think we talked about this the other day and I said, can 2027 come fast enough? Wow. I would love to give a practical example. And what you were just talking about, the iceberg, it makes me remember something that I read the other day a little bit about my human design. And gosh, I don't remember hardly anything, but it was in a certain scenario where whatever, people are sitting around the table. And the part about my human design is that, instead of being the one to speak up right away, that it's sort of better for me to wait until I'm asked. And then that allows for a more powerful
Yep.
reception from everybody else. And I
Yeah.
thought about that for a second. And there's that desire within us to like, we want to be heard.
Yeah.
And so maybe we try to, like Sheryl Sandberg says, lean in. But
Yeah.
perhaps with my human design, it's not about leaning in. It's about
No.
waiting to be asked my opinion, because my opinion will be asked, because there's a
Yes.
power that I have. So people are naturally going to ask me. And
Yeah.
when they do, and when I respond, that is when things align. That's when I'm heard more. And I
Yep.
read that and I was like blown away, because we're
Yeah.
not taught that. We're taught to like
No.
insert ourselves and,
Initiate. Yep.
assert ourselves. And that's sort of against what my human design is.
Yeah.
And that's about all that's about as far as I got.
And honestly, but how powerful is it? Like even that little bit of information, how much that shifts how you approach your day, how you approach how you want to create things. Like, I don't know, for me, because I'm the same way. By the way, spoiler alert, only 7% of the population are meant to initiate. The rest of us are meant to wait, whether that is
Yeah.
wait to respond, wait for invitation. So that right there blows out all of the initiate, follow through, go for the ask.
Yeah.
So even in that alone, probably most people are like, well, geez, so what do I do?
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, that gives us the information to go, oh, so if I don't need to be spending 10 hours a day talking to people online and going for and setting up all these coffees, it's like, ooh, well then how can I fill that time? What can I master in that time? What are the things that I've been putting off that I really enjoy because I thought I had to do X, Y, Z because this is what I'm told.
Yep.
And I have to say that's probably one of the bigger deep breaths I get when I tell entrepreneurs of the whole waiting. Yes, I also get a lot of like, but like for example, I'm what's called a projector.
Mm-hmm.
I only have 2 to 4 hours of natural energy a day. So technically I can only quote unquote work 2 to 4 hours a day. I came from, an entrepreneur only sleeps 3 hours. Like I was up at 5 a.m. I was up till 3. Yeah, right. Like I gotta hustle my face off.
Yeah.
And when I read that, I'm like, well, makes sense. This is why I burned out as much as I did in those several hallways. Got it. Cool. Okay. So with this information now, how do I want to structure my day? And so I found ways to do it to where I didn't have to think about it. Automation, calendar links. Everybody gets a calendar link. My calendar knows I can only have 2 meetings a day, certain days a week. So I don't try to overschedule myself. So it's those little things. Darren Hardy has the most amazing quote that I say all the time where he says, it's the little things you do every day that make the biggest difference. Yeah, and we forget that sometimes.
It's atomic habits, right? It's those little things taken over time turn into big things.
Exactly.
Good or bad.
Yeah. And the other deep breath that I love seeing is one of the other types, as I mentioned, is called a manifesting generator. And those are our multitaskers. Those are the ones that are multi-passionate, that can be in multiple areas very quote unquote successfully and get the most ridiculous pit in their stomach when they're told to niche down, when they're told to just focus on one thing and stick to it. That is like death to a manifesting generator. But they don't know that that's part of their design. They just try to fight against it. They just go, okay, and then they beat themselves up. Well, maybe it's ADHD, which sometimes it can be. But a lot of the times it's just your manifesting generator screaming at you. And when I don't like to say give them the permission because they already have the permission themselves, but I show them the permission slip.
Yep.
Then they go, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, so then how do I do that? How can I be? Because it's not taught on how to be multi-passionate, on how to be a multitasker. We are taught to prioritize. We are taught to niche down, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying those are bad things, but those are only meant for certain types of people.
Yeah.
And so all of this noise, all of this information that we always get, whether it's asked for or not, thanks to social media, friends, what have you, we can take that noise and we can funnel it into what we know to be true, what we can process, and what we can just bless and release and walk away from.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that subconsciously once you get to a point, I have to tell you, it's just so, it's a relaxation inside of your business that I never knew could exist, even when things weren't quote unquote successful as opposed to what they were before. I have never felt more profitable inside of my business than I have in the last 13 years. And I know
Yeah.
that the more that I attune to it and design my business around it and through it, this is just going to be a daily occurrence. And the financial is just going to get to where it needs, to where it's supposed to be, needs to be, wants to be, universally gives me. And the fact that in the day of, I can be present, I can be grounded, I can be grateful. Yes, I still have moments because I am human. I will see,
Yeah.
there's still FOMO, there's still, what the fuckery, there's still a lot of things.
Yep.
But I also now have that operations manual that I can go back to and go, okay, this is how I'm feeling. How can I move through this? What are my most profitable practices to continue to be myself and to continue to create what I want in my own way?
Oh my gosh. This, you talk about the word, which I don't always love, but you talk about the word empowering. What you're
Yeah,
talking about is literally self empowering. And it
absolutely.
reminds me, I listened to this wonderful podcast, which is funny and smart. It's called Project Me with Tiffany Carter. And she uses this phrase a lot. She says, I'm not available for that, or like, that's not for me. And
Hmm.
having human design as almost what you said, your permission slip to say, that's not for me.
Yeah,
And being so confident in that and grounded in that,
yeah,
it opens up like this power, right? Like, no, I'm not going to be able to do that because that's not for me. That's not how I work. Is
yeah,
instead of constantly being ping ponged around by
yeah,
what other people want you to do, how they want you to interact with them, all of it literally takes back your own power. I know
yeah,
for myself that so many times I look toward other things that are successful because I have this logical mind where I'm like, okay,
hmm,
that worked. Like, let me try that. And
hmm,
and then it doesn't work for me. And then I
hmm,
get so frustrated because I'm like,
hmm,
why isn't that working for me when it works for them? What's the difference? And then I go straight down the path of like, there's something terribly wrong with me.
yeah,
Right.
yep,
And I go in this whole beat myself up cycle
yeah,
that is PS not productive and
yeah,
not helpful and doesn't get me anywhere. And
yeah,
to have this knowledge of human design, I know that I'm going to, because I have until 2027, I'm going to do some deep diving into this so that
yeah,
I can be able to state who I am, what
yeah,
ground I stand on, and why it's important for anybody that is going to want to work with me, collaborate with me, whatever it is, that this is how it works for me. And
hmm,
if that works for you, let's proceed. If that's not something, like you said, bless and release without any type of like negativity around it at all. It's just
yeah,
like, oh, wait, that doesn't fit together. It doesn't work. Okay.
yeah,
Like, amazing. Let's move on.
yeah,
This feels so beautiful to me. And I want to learn so much more about human design. And I'm sure that after this conversation, everybody that's listening in wants to learn more about human design. How can they find you, reach out to you, have you help them with their human
yeah.
design?
Absolutely. So my favorite way first is to just to get to know people. So if you have questions or if you'd like to spend some one-on-one time with me, I do 30-minute complimentary virtual coffees, and you can find that at virtualcoffeewithmel.com. You are more than welcome to respectfully stalk me on Instagram, which is at Mel_McSherry, or on LinkedIn, Mel McSherry. You can also check out what happens inside of a reading if you choose to do one with me on my website at melmcsherry.com.
Amazing. Yeah. And I really love your point about, with all of these fun, they're so much fun typing tests, right? Like
Yeah.
to take it for what it is, but to do more research and dive deeper because we don't want to
Yeah.
just say like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm a generator. And so because of that, blah, 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 blah. No,
Yep.
you're an individual human being. And how does that all work within
Yep.
your life and where you are? It's so important to not just Instagram your type
Yeah.
and then live your
Yeah.
life like that, because that is going to set yourself up for frustration as well.
Absolutely. And yes, absolutely 100%.
Mel, this has been so enlightening, and I cannot wait to dive more into human design. I did have my type done through a very good friend of mine, and I uncovered, what it was. And it's weird. I don't know if I completely agree or disagree or whatever. I'm just kind of
Yeah.
like, absorbing it for the time being. Because even what you said about being this, manifestor generator doing a million things, like that totally resonates with me, but that that wasn't necessarily my type. So yeah, I got more to do. So we have got to talk,
Yeah.
okay?
Absolutely. Because even my mind is like, oh, that's probably in your open centers. And I could just start totally blaming you right now. But I will hold off.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mel. This has been so much fun. I absolutely adore you. And I can't wait for everybody in the She Leads audience to reach out to you and get their human design typed and work with you more. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed every single second of it.
This and all of our episodes are brought to you by the She Leads Podcast Network, the podcast network for women, by women. Thanks so much for listening to the She Leads podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support us, please share it with others, make a personalized post about what you took away on social media, and please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. This helps our guests and our show to continue to gain visibility and traction. To learn more about how She Leads Media helps women to gain visibility, you can follow us on Instagram at She Leads Media, or you can head on over to sheleadsmedia.com. If you'd like to network with me and other amazing women, don't forget to join us each year for the She Leads Live conference. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon. This is the She Leads Podcast Network.